Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Risk with Dr. Naveen Agarwal. Each week, we talk about a topic related to risk management of medical devices in a very casual and informal way. This is not a webinar or lecture. Rather, our goal is to talk about key topics and challenges in a very informal way and share best practices. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal, and I'm the principal and founder at Achieve, where my personal mission is to help you achieve success in risk management. My guest in this episode is Leo Eisner. He's also known as the 60601 guy in the medical device industry because he has over 20 years of direct experience and hands-on work in the IEC 60601 standard development. We are talking about a brief history of 60601 as a major safety standard for medical devices, where it has been and where it's going in the upcoming 4th edition. Leo is leading the work in the development of the 4th edition, and there's a lot of work going on. We had this conversation as part of our weekly LinkedIn live audio series. You're about to hear a recording of our conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Well, hello guys, and welcome to our Let's Talk Risk conversation. We took a break in August, so I kind of missed you guys, and I'm so excited to be back again. Guys, you are in for a treat because we're going to have such an amazing conversation about a very important topic in our industry. And I have Leo Eisner. He is better known as the 60601 guy. So if you have worked with 60601 or you have just heard about it and you might have a lot of questions, he is the guy to learn about 60601, why it is so important for our medical device industry. So let me get started by welcoming Leo. Leo, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here because even I'm personally very interested in learning more about 60601. Many in the audience have experience too. So guys, make sure you contribute and participate in our discussion later on. You might have some questions for Leo, and this is your perfect chance. So, Leo, I want to start by inviting you to introduce yourself to folks who might not know you in our audience today.
So I've been consulting for just shy of 28 years now, and I started in the industry at Underwriters Labs, so a test lab, for 9 years, but I didn't do anything. I did everything but medical. Then I got into medical in 1994 at TUV Sud, and I've stayed in medical ever since because it's a great industry. And that's when I learned 60601, 2nd edition. We're on 3rd edition, and I'm currently starting to write 4th edition because I'm on the leadership team writing the 4th edition of 601, which we'll talk about shortly, it sounds like.
So, Leo, you have been at the cutting edge, at the forefront of really developing standards, body of knowledge, best practices in the medical device industry. I think a journey of over 20 years, if I'm not wrong. And it's just inspiring to me personally to have somebody who has contributed so much to the field. So I want to start by just asking you to give us a very, very quick high-level view of what 60601 is, where it has come from, and why is it so important for us in the medical device industry.
So it's definitely evolved because I think the 1st edition, that's before my time, was in the early 70s, I believe. I'm not even sure I have a copy of it. And so most people think of it as electrical safety, but it's much broader than just electrical safety. It is for active devices, being something powered by some type of electrical energy, being battery, a power source, like a brick power supply or a power supply internally or externally. But there's mechanical requirements, there's a lot of labeling requirements, there's ionizing sources you have to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about biocompatibility and sterilization requirements you have to consider, even though a lot of it isn't directly in the standard, it's referred out to other standards. You have dripping water requirements and fluids and dust requirements and creepage and clearance and isolation. So there's a lot of different requirements that it almost becomes a global standard. Mm-hmm. That even non-active devices, we've used the standard for products that don't have a home as well within our consultancy. So it's a really important standard. Also, it relies a lot on risk management.
Yeah.
It refers to 14971 a lot, starting on third edition, which came out in 2005.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Leo, 60601 was talking about risk management even before 14971. And was it not the joint working group in the late 90s from the 60601 and the other committees that they got together to start building 14971? Am I remembering it correctly?
That would be an Edwin question. Okay. And he's actually on the call, so maybe he can answer
We'll get some clarification. But the point I wanted to make was that 60601 has talked about safety for a long time, and now it is explicitly linking it to 14971, which is actually a great synergy between different standards. So let's continue our discussion there, Leo. I know you have been recently involved in convening the group for the next edition of 60601 series. Tell us what's going on there and what we can expect in this new version.
Well, there's a huge amount of work going on. I'm putting in probably, 50, 60 hours a month currently into the project, and a lot of the conveners are. So there's 12 working groups within the project, and each working group is dealing with basically different major hazard groups. So the group I'm involved in is called User Interface Aspects, which is dealing with, just this one group is dealing with information supplied by the manufacturer, usability, alarm systems, and also user interfaces, is just this one group. Another is material hazards. Another is PEMS, or programmable electromedical systems. But then that aspect is also dealing with AI, machine learning, software as a medical device, software in a medical device, and other related distributed software issues, because software is distributed across the world for a medical device, because you can have a surgery that is performed in one location but controlled across the world nowadays. So we're looking at those aspects now where it wasn't considered in the previous editions of the standard. So technology has changed. We need to move with the technology change. Electrical hazards, that group, they're rewriting a lot of the requirements to come up to where things have changed. So one example would be defibrillation-proof testing. That test, the requirements are so much higher than what is reality now. Because it's, I think, a 5,000 volt test roughly. I'm not an exact expert on that area, but I know defibrillators now, how they work are different than how the test was set up. So they're looking at updating that is one example. And the spacings requirements in the electrical hazards, they're looking at modifying that. Then there's mechanical hazards. Thermal and fire hazards is another group. Optical radiation, visible UV and IR, ionizing radiation hazards, electromagnetic exposure, which includes SAR, and I forget what that abbreviation stands for, but that's the absorption through the skin, the heating issue. Then there's electromagnetic disturbances, which now finally they're going to add in wireless coexistence, which has been an issue in the U.S., but has not been around the rest of the world. So the world is going to catch up, but it's going to be a while before they catch up. The other groups are physical environmental hazards, which they're going to deal with the all the different patient environments, the battery management systems, which is a big deal because robotics have very specific battery management systems. There's also, because of the different battery systems we have out there, battery cells and stuff. You have to look at all that. And there's so much more going on. And that's just minor tip of the iceberg.
It's exciting. It's exciting. And I know, Leo, you have posted some documents here in the comment section, guys. I want you to take a look at those. If you select the most recent comments, you will see, Leo, you have posted 2 documents. Can you briefly describe what they are?
Sure. So the architecture specification is the first document that sort of came out of this project. And the project concept was sort of voted on in Kobe in 2015. And we had to have sort of a overall arching concept of how we were going forward with all the standards for the 601 series, which are now numbering in probably close to 90 documents in the 601 series. It's a huge base of knowledge. And so we realized that we were having trouble managing the whole series properly. And so we decided we were going to restructure things. And so it took about 5 years for them to come up with this document and sort of a guiding light. And from that, then came out the design specification for the 4th edition project, which builds out, okay, what are the fragments, the working groups that I sort of talked about very briefly a minute ago? What are sort of the specs for, here's the at least base information of where we should go ahead for writing the 4th edition. So those are public documents that are accessible, and I give you my bit.ly links so you can access those, which are, I think, LinkedIn posts.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Leo. I appreciate it. So guys, here's a great resource for you to learn a little bit more about this project. If you are really hands-on in this, it'll be very useful for you. Now, Leo, before I open the conversation for our audience, I have one last question for you. From a risk practice perspective, it's very important for us to be interested and involved in standards. But I want to hear from you, what is your perspective? Why risk practitioners should be interested in all different kind of standards, or particularly those that are relevant to them, and maybe even get involved in the standards development process. What is your take on that?
Well, first, it's important because for the development of any product, you need risk management, and especially for medical devices. So that's the first perspective. The second is, if you want to have an edge as a company, having someone on your team involved in the development of a standard, you'll get to know and understand the standard better than anyone else in your company. Also within industry, you'll be one of the knowledge seekers and people that people will come to. So if you go to a test house, and I just talked about this with another consultant this morning, literally this morning, and get challenged about a requirement, you can tell them, I wrote this standard. They should not be able to challenge you then on that requirement, because you know exactly what was written. You were in the room. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
Right there.
For sure. And I think you're also shaping the future direction of the industry. You are creating best practices. You are involved in something bigger than just your immediate project. So I hope, guys, you will feel inspired by that and maybe get interested in and participate. So I'm going to open up for conversation and invite you all to participate. Have a question, comment, thought, concern, challenge you have faced that you can gain from the wisdom and experience of Leo on this call. So guys, go ahead, please indicate to me that you are interested in joining us on this virtual stage. You just need to raise your hand and I'll bring you on stage. And again, you don't have to wait your turn. You can indicate that you're interested and I can bring more than one person on the stage here. to have a conversation. I know, Ali, you are requesting to speak, so you're on. Go ahead and unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
Hello, Naveen.
Yes.
Hello, Ali.
Hi.
Thank you so much for arranging this event. My question to you may be a complex question. First of all, I would like to understand about the timelines for the fourth edition. The second question is about, from the manufacturer perspective, what a manufacturer should expect in the fourth edition. Are there any, for example, additional requirements? From the document that you shared, I think some of the requirements, like clause 16, will be distributed across the clauses of the fourth edition, and also the single floor conditions in the clause 13 in the 3.2 edition will be also distributed into the standard. So anything that the manufacturer need to be wary of, and is the philosophy of the standard remains the same, single fold safety. And there is maybe a fourth question about combination of two-fold conditions. Are there any changes on this particular bit? Because it's not very clear in the 3.1 edition and in the 3.2 edition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ali. Go ahead, Leo, please.
So for the timeline, the estimated publication, which I don't think will happen personally, but I'm not the only person involved, so we'll have to see how things fall together. Right now, the estimated publication based on the project plan is 2029. And I think there's also within the schedule that it'll be another year after that. My guess is, based on how every major edition has happened in the last 2 rounds, it'll be more than 6 years. It'll be closer to 10 years. But that's an estimate where it falls together, because this is a huge reshuffling, because all the collaterals are going into the general standard other than 1-9. 1-9 goes away because it's getting rewritten as a different document, which is a separate project, which is the environmentally conscious design. There are going to be a lot of changes, and I'm only involved in 2 working groups, so I can't speak to all the other working groups because I haven't seen the requirements yet. And remember, as they get published, there's going to be comments and things are going to change, and the requirements are not fully written at this point. Even at the CD, it's not going, which is the first committee draft, which is what's going to get published hopefully by March of next year for vote. That's when the national committees can see a copy, and you should be able to get access if you have access to the national committee, or you can ask to have access. You should be able to see what the draft looks like. It's going to be published in fragments. So all 12 working groups are going to publish separate fragments, so they all can come out anytime from probably November of this year till March of next year is the timeline of when they're all going to show up at different times. So every group's going to publish their own fragment. Mm-hmm. The first 2 CDs and maybe I think the first CDV, the committee draft for vote, is all going to be in fragments. Then we're probably going to consolidate into a merged document after that. The reason is we're doing this on an online standards development tool, which is a new concept that we started on this project, that the goal is to have a database standard.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say, Leo, even though the timeline is long, we will have like frequent information coming out in the public so people can view it, beginning late this year and early next year, right?
That's for the first committee draft, yes.
Okay. Are you able to speak to some of the other parts of the question from Ali in this at all right now, or we don't have much information?
So it's hard to know because, I mean, there are going to be new requirements, definitely. I mean, like there's cleaning and sterilization, disinfection is going to be more detailed. I think it's going to focus on specific requirements, but probably point out to standards that exist. Mm-hmm. It's probably not going to be a lot within the standard itself that it's going to have test requirements, but the test requirements are going to be conformance to like 10993-1, uh-huh. which already exists in the standard. But for cleanability and disinfection, that's going to probably change. There's also gas pathways, which is a newer issue that's going to get added in. So there are going to be lots of new things and changes that didn't exist in the previous versions. I don't know about the question of the electrical safety questions because I'm not in that group, so I can't answer that because I'm not involved in that.
Okay, no problem, Leo. Thank you. And Ali, I say stay tuned. I know you are deep into it and you have very specific questions, and I'm sure we will have a lot more information coming out in the future. And on this forum, we will also consider more discussion. So thank you again for your question.
Thank you.
Akash, you are next. Thank you for joining. Please unmute your mic and share what you have in mind.
So first of all, thank you, Naveen, for this initiative and for let us talk this on, I think, beginning of the episodes. So, and I also comment you on the your content was just amazing.
Thank you.
It's really helpful to get the insights into the specific topic.
Thank you so much.
So I had a question regarding the SIMD software as a medical device, because what I know about the SIMD is that along with IEC 62304, we have to follow IEC 60601 as well. But for SIMD, is there any requirement in the new edition, whether they are considering the requirements?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question, Akash. Leo, are you okay answering that? I don't know if it was entirely clear. I can repeat the question if you like.
Yeah, I had a hard time.
Yes. Yeah. If I heard it correctly, Akash, you were asking, for SIMD, you are pretty clear that, hey, there are additional requirements if applicable in 60601. But your question is if it's a SAMD, which means it's outside the device, it's a standalone software product, is that covered in 60601? I think that's the gist of your question, right, Akash?
Yeah.
Perfect. Leo, are you able to say a few things about that?
So that's, again, it's not one of the working groups I'm in, so that part I'm not going to be able to answer. Mm-hmm. I know also 62304, the second edition, just started up. It's a new group fairly recently, I think also in either late April or early May. And so hopefully that will get taken care of before 601 is published, that we'll be able to incorporate that reference into the 601. And hopefully that will resolve that issue, because actually I think that's part of 82304, but I'm not an expert in software either.
Got you.
Software, and there's so many topics within 601. I rely on multiple experts within my group even.
Understood.
For software, the EMC, and other things.
Understood. Thank you. Akash, I think what I'm going to add to Leo's comments is that the underlying principles, these are different standards, but of course, risk management goes across the board. And you have to think about interfaces. Even though if it's a SAMD, if it's interfacing with something else, you got to figure out what might be applicable. And there's already an existing, body of standards and knowledge there, but a lot is happening. So I would say stay tuned and please continue to bring these questions and comments in this forum and stay engaged, and we will address them as we learn more. So guys, okay, great. Thank you again for participating. Guys, floor is open. We still have about 5 minutes or so. Don't be shy. This is just going to be a very casual conversation. And if you don't feel like speaking up, you can also add your question or comment in the comment section on the page. But it's best if we have a lot of conversation. And, we are having a great opportunity here with Leo on the stage with us. So I would say don't hold back. I'm sure you have some questions, comments, or your own experiences to share. So I invite you to take advantage of this opportunity. Leo, while we are waiting for people to get involved, I'm also interested in just as a big question, big perspective, not just 60601, but any special perspective you have about risk management, the practice of risk management. What do you think is the best way to approach that from a practical point of view?
So always start as early as possible in the design development process, which I think is a mistake that a lot of companies do, is they wait too long. They assume, just like their design inputs, I don't need to do that early. Is one of the biggest mistakes I see, is they don't do it early enough. And 601, even though you didn't ask for that aspect, 601 looks at a lot of the hazards already.
Yes,
for devices. And with the new structure of the work groups, we're looking at not all the hazards that you would in a hazard analysis or risk analysis, but it covers a good chunk of what you would think of for a medical device. So it will help you think through that process.
That is such a great point. I think I want to emphasize that, Leo, because I think it's also informing my own thinking, is that you may not be working with an electromechanical or electromedical device, but 60601 is a great resource for you to have a good understanding of different hazards. And then you can think about how it might apply to your own device. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, definitely. Like I said early on, we use the standard even for non-active medical devices sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there's so many resources in it that are very helpful in submissions or regulatory approvals.
Excellent point. So Darpan, I see you have joined us. I want to invite you to unmute your mic and share what you have in mind. Go ahead, please. Darpan, can you hear me? Okay, we'll give Darpan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead, please.
Naveen,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Share your question or comment.
So continue. So continuing with your discussion with risk management and IEC 60601-1, like I remember those days back 6-7 years ago, and used to submit the test report form from some for the UL certification for the CE cert, and I've been asked very tedious traceability with clause by clause from 60601-1, like some of the test with the single fault conditions, ball pressure test, drop test, like how it is managed through the risk management file. And I had to provide exact traceability, which risk line item in the FMEAs or hazard analysis that talks about those risks to be considered from 60601-1. So are these still is a requirement from the agencies or auditing, like a UL or TU cert, or is it still a flexible nowadays?
Yeah, good question. Leo, are you able to share something on that, and I'll add to it?
So are you talking from edition 3.0 and 3.1, or are you talking currently through 3.2? 6-7 years ago would have been before 3.2. So from the TRF, the test report form that CB scheme issues, they changed, and it's also that in 3.2 there was a little bit of a change. the CB scheme changed the test report form. And so how the form's written, it's not quite as tedious that you don't have to fill out the form quite in the same way at the back. I'm sorry that I was hitting my mic by mistake. There was background noise there. So it's not quite as tedious potentially, but it really depends on the test lab and how finicky they are, to be honest.
Got it.
So yeah, you still have to do the work. It's just how you fill out the test report form. It might be a little easier now with the newer version of the CB test report form, or TRF, as I call it. Now, in 4th edition, we're trying, is one of the goals is to reduce the reference to the risk management file. How good or how close we're going to get to that goal, I don't know, because I see still in the requirements that we've been writing, we're still referencing the risk management file chunk. I think we're reducing it, but I don't know because I can't see into every working group yet. So I don't know where we're going to land on that.
More to come. Darpan, I'll very quickly add to that is that from a risk management point of view, traceability is very important. So how we execute, I think it becomes a question of efficiency and effectiveness. There are many ways to do that, but traceability has got to be there. And it's in some ways non-optional. You have to be able to show that you have adequate and effective risk control. So we're going to leave it there, guys. We have run out of time. I want to thank you once again for participating. And I want to give Leo just a couple of minutes to process his thoughts and share some 2 or 3 key points with us. But in the meantime, I'm going to share a couple of announcements with you. First, we are again going to take a break next week. There's stuff going on which I have to attend. But we're going to come back the following week with a discussion on cybersecurity. So keep an eye on my LinkedIn feed. The announcement will go out in a week or so. And that cybersecurity discussion should be very interesting. The second announcement is that I'm going to be starting my next session of the live ISO 14971 training course. If any one of you are interested, reach out to me and I'll provide more information on that. With that, Leo, I want to open the floor to you just to share a few key points that we can all take away with.
So one is to follow up on Darpan's point about the risk management file references. So one thing that one of the goals is of the 4th edition is to have more discrete testing in the standard versus the risk management file callouts. To make it easier to have since it's a type test standard and it's not a life cycle standard, the 60601-1, we're trying to reduce the process standards or references and have more conformance requirements that are testable. So that would reduce those callouts, which then would reduce that referencing that you were talking about.
Thank you.
You still do need that if it exists, but we'll see again where that lands depending on how feedback happens based on what we get from the comments too, which I expect there'll be a lot of comments no matter what we write.
Sure thing.
There'll be a change. Next, it's a long process and there's going to be a lot of comments, and I really highly recommend people look at what gets published so you can make comments, because if you don't make comments, you're not a voice. And without that, you're going to end up with what gets published. So you need to put a voice out there if you want to be a participant. Or you can also join your national committees and be a voice by actively being a participant.
Great. Thank you so much, Leo, for sharing your time and insights with us. Thank you, everybody. I want to ask you just a quick poll. Use the emojis to share how you are feeling and how did you like this particular discussion. Let us know what's on your mind. You can always reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or any other way. I look forward to hearing your feedback because, guys, this is about you and all of us together. This is about creating a conversation, creating a community This is not a lecture, not a webinar. So we are all in it together, and your contribution and feedback matters a lot. We will have many more discussions like this in the future as things evolve. Things are moving so fast in our industry. It's important for us to stay current and updated, and that's why we have conversations like this. With that, thank you all again for joining. Thanks, Leo, Darpan, and Ali for participating, and I wish you all a good weekend ahead. Take care, guys.